There are calls for politicians and public officials in Nigeria to be held accountable to the public. Organizers of the Nigeria Accountability Summit say accountability is crucial to the development of democracy. The summit's objective is to convene accountability actors and stakeholders at national and subnational levels to identify social, financial, political, administrative, ethical and legal accountability challenges impeding effective public administration in Nigeria and agree on feasible solutions to address these challenges.
What we are going to be doing with the Accountability Summit is very simple. What has government committed to do, and is government delivering on what it has committed to do? So existing policies, existing policy objectives, especially as it relates to sustainable development, we are going to be targeting those areas and holding policymakers accountable to those policy objectives.
This change rests in our leaders. Leadership is not merely a position of authority. It is a commitment to serving the people with integrity and transparency. Today, I urge our leaders to be torchbearers of accountability, to lead by example, and foster a society where accountability is not just a requirement, but a shared value. As Nigerians, we have to unlearn the unhealthy attitudes that nurture corruption and embrace a positive culture of accountability. Societal orientation and leading by example are vital in achieving the accountability we yearn for. Let us remember that the future of our nation is shaped by the quality of actions we take today. By embracing accountability as a responsibility and institutionalizing all its categories in our public institutions, we will successfully pave the way for a brighter and more prosperous Nigeria.
Right, we're joined now by the Executive Director of Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative, Olusegun Elemo. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you for having me.
You know, once I heard, just listening to all that's been said about, accountability at different levels, it makes you wonder exactly where should the sense of accountability start from? Should it be at the family level? Or should we wait until, it gets to society level? Or where exactly? Because by the time you get it to leadership, you're formed already.
Well, absolutely. Everybody has the duty to be accountable, whether as individuals or as a collective, or even as an association or as groups, or whatever level you are, you have to be accountable. Even at the family unit, you have to be accountable to one another, husband and wives. You have to be accountable to one of the children and their parents. You have to be accountable to one another. It's just that sense of answerability. And we shouldn't be averse to being questioned, because for you to be able to be answerable, it means that questions must have been raised as to why did you do this, how did you do it, when did you do it, and all of that. And I think that's the whole sense we're bringing to governance now, to begin to look at how policymakers, their attitude to work, the attitude to implementing their policies. And like I said earlier at the summit, we are not another think tank group. We are not going to be another think tank group. There are too many of them already in the ecosystem. What we just want to do is that after the think tank groups have charted those policy pathways for government, because we are not going to be charting new policy pathways. What we want to do is that the existing policies that government, said, I will do this, we will do this, we will deliver on this, so time, the timeline and all of that. Those are the things we want to track. Those are the things we want to identify where the challenges are, what are the feasible solutions, to these challenges. Who are the actors that we implement the solutions? And how do we pursue expected changes? Those are the goals.
Okay, Olusegun, I'm beginning to think that there will be certain unhealthy habits that actually nurture corruption, as you might know. Yeah. What are those habits, so that we can begin to address them one after the other?
I think biggest of all is opacity. When you have some element of darkness, people can behave, anywhere they are. And I can give you an example of what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. There were rules were lifted. were suspended. Fiscal rules were suspended to allow, extra procurement activities go on without the due process. That's some kind of, not passing through the regular transparency elements and accountability protocols, that ordinarily will hold public officials responsible for, public spending and all of that accountable. Right. Once that happened during COVID, you then realize that a lot of things then happened after that. How people then utilized funds, how they implemented government programs during that period. There was no, in fact, recently, I'm sure you must have also seen it, that the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives, started to call some agencies, to come and answer for how they utilized, COVID spending. So what I'm saying is, once there is some element of opacity, lack of transparency, you'll begin to see elements of corruption.
But how do you keep them honest? How do you keep them accountable? I mean, because in this part, it does seem that the first casualty when people get to public office is to set aside the rule of law or the rules, that guide the operations of whatever department
that is the point.
It is.
That is the point.
Yeah. Can you achieve accountability without ensuring first and foremost that the rule of law is followed to the letter?
No, you can't. You can't
or do you
really.
leave it to the whims and caprices of whoever is there?
Well, that is why, I always say that, democracy is not difficult to practice. It's self-healing when you look at, how the constitutions, how democracy is actually structured. There are checks and balances already. And it's self-healing if we practice it properly the way it should be. The problem is that we suspend many of the, practicing ethics in a democracy. For this is that for everybody, nobody is just can be self-accountable like that without certain accountability structures being observed. Even at the family unit, even between husband and wife, you just discover that if you leave both parties to behave at their, at their discretion, everybody will just. But once question is being raised, then people, start to get checked. Exactly what happens also in governance. There are rules. That's why you have the laws. That's why you have the policies. That's why you have the regulations. That's why you have all of those things.
That reminds me, we also have the Public Procurement Act. Yeah. Do you think, Olusegun, that the Public Procurement Act, because I was going through it a while ago before I came on the show, do you think the Public Procurement Act is too cumbersome, or why is it so difficult for public office holders to adhere to the recommendations in the Public Procurement Act?
Well, if you ask me, I would say the Act is due for review. It's due for review. I mean, we're talking about 2007, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes, it's due for review. That's almost how many years now? 2017, 10 years, 2023. Yeah. We're talking about almost 16 years. Yeah. I mean, come on. We need to look at it, take a deep look at it. Where are the gaps? Why are people behaving, the way they are? And then is the procurement process really, that allows for people to be held accountable? We need to look at all of those provisions, and where there needs to be review. I think the National Assembly, that's why they're paid anyway. You're supposed to take a look at these things, more regularly.
Is it just about reviewing the old laws? I mean, what have we even done with the old
with the old one, right? Exactly what we're saying about this accountability summit. That even before we begin to introduce new policies, yes, we must introduce new policies, new regulations and all of that. The existing one, what have we done? Have we even implemented to that level, appreciable level that, that we can say, oh, this is it. Yeah. So that's why the summit, and, it's not just our organization. We have 10 other partners. You have Budget, you have CGID, you have a couple of them, and this is going to be an annual thing where we then look at where are the gaps in terms of implementation of policies.
Have you been able to identify any of these gaps?
Oh, no, yes, we have. I'll give you an example. Even, for instance, with the climate change that the president, the COP28 that the president is attending, and that reminds me, yesterday, when he presented the budget, recall that the president, mentioned something around hardship and benefits, and that the hardship will not stay too long before you start seeing the benefit. Exactly why we need to keep an eye on what the president and his team are going to be doing, not just the president and his team, even the governors and their teams in all the states, at subnational level, and even cascade down to the local government. So you need to keep to keep an eye on what they're doing. But going to whether we have assessed any of this. Yeah, we took up some policies, some climate change policies. I think a number of them, maybe 10 or thereabout, and we highlighted about 281 public projects, and we had written recently to the Honorable Minister of Environment and say, oh yeah, we know that these have been captured in the budget. We know these are connected to certain policy objectives, and we know that funds have been released. Can you tell us where these projects have been executed? and that request have been with that ministry for. I mean, you can guess.
Olusegun Olema, we'd like to say thank you very much to you for coming to this night. Executive Director of Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative. Thank you very much indeed. We just hope that our public office holders will be more accountable to the people.
Right, we hope so too.